4th of July Nightmare. Posted by Dependent Ad 87493. My family asked me if I wanted to go with them to check out the fireworks on the 4th of July. I was 16 years old at the time. I really didn't want to go. Not that I had anything at all against the fireworks, but I really wanted to go out drinking with my friend Matt. We figured that we would break into the abandoned school building in the area. Lots of teenagers would do that, and it was a well-known place for drinking and smoking weed, where the police would leave you alone. I met up with Matt, and he had scored some weed too. I didn't smoke it all too often, but every once in a while I would. He was a bit worried that being the 4th, a lot of people would have broken into the school. Whenever we had gone before, we had never come across any other teenagers. Like normal, we snuck through an opening in the fence that surrounded the place. At that point, everything still seemed fine. There wasn't really anything to indicate that anyone else would be there. We went behind the building and there was a broken door we used to get in. Still, there was no indication that we weren't alone. We found a room and began smoking the weed and drinking a little bit. It was really nice. We weren't too far away from the fireworks display that we couldn't hear the fireworks going off in the sky. We were probably in there for over an hour when Matt gave me a really weird look. "Did you hear that?" he asks me. I told him that I could hear the fireworks. He shook his head and told me that wasn't what he meant. "I think I heard something in here." I thought maybe he was just enjoying the weed a little too much. He insisted though that he heard something in another room. When I suggested it was probably more teenagers drinking, he decided we should go look for them and see if they wanted to hang out. I really didn't care too much to do that, but I went ahead and went with him. We were walking down the hallway. I still hadn't heard anything, but Matt even told me again that he heard some noises. I began to think that maybe Matt was messing with me or trying to scare me or something. I had to brace myself, waiting for him to try and scare me or something. I then heard something too. It was a firecracker. It had to be. I may have even had heard it before, but mistook it for something from the display. There had to be someone in one of the other rooms letting off fireworks. No big deal really. Fireworks were illegal for just anyone to have. The displays were done by the city. We came here for illegal drinking and illegal smoking, so it made sense someone might come here for illegal fireworks. So we found the room. There was an open doorway and there was a little bit of light coming from it. We decided to go through the doorway and introduce ourselves. Matt told me he'd offer them weed so they didn't think we would narc on them or anything. We looked in the doorway and froze. There were 2 people in the room, but they were dressed as clowns. One was sitting on the floor with a bunch of firecrackers in his hand. The other was standing up and facing the door. He had a huge sparkler in his hand. You know how when someone has a sparkler, they write words in the air? He wrote "Hi" with the sparkler to us. The other one quickly lit a firecracker and threw it at us. We just turned and ran. It was too odd. We remembered previously when that whole clown thing was going on a year earlier. We had seen many YouTube videos of clowns doing weird and dangerous stuff. We were terrified at the weirdness and what we saw and what might happen. Though, and it was none other than Pennywise, me and Matt backed up. I was surprised. Then he said, "Time to float." Then he looked at Matt and started to eat him. I ran out of there as fast as I can. I got back in tears and told no one. I hated this day. Not only Pennywise is still out there and real, but my friend Matt was eaten alive. Dance with the Devil. Raquel was simply stunning, easily the most beautiful girl in the blossoming town of El Paso. All the men tripped over their own feet attempting to win her heart. She was, however, a notorious flirt and tease, and a phenomenal dancer. Her only requirement for her prospective suitors was that they be able to keep up with her on the dance floor. One particular evening in late October, Raquel was having an exceptionally wonderful night. Her feet hardly seemed to touch the floor as she whirled gracefully from partner to partner, shaming the men courageous enough to keep pace with her wild yet graceful moments. She laughed as she danced, red skirts flying, delighting in the frustration she caused each of them, and consequently their female counterparts. After hours of merciless teasing and cuckolding, Raquel excused herself for a brief respite from the dance floor. This was, of course, met with both wistful sighs from the men and jealous sniffs from the other women. While reposing near the small raised dais where the mariachi band was playing, Raquel happened to spy a strikingly handsome young man in an extravagant black suit. It was not uncommon for youthful tycoons who struck it rich to pass through El Paso, but this man was truly exceptional. He was tall, with deep-set eyes that gleamed with a mischievous sparkle. His face was eloquently formed, strong, clean-shaven, jaw jutting beneath wide-set cheekbones. Upon spotting her, he smoothly doffed his cap and gave the beautiful temptress an elaborate bow. He smiled as he strode confidently over to Raquel, revealing rows of perfect gleaming white teeth. And as he neared her, she felt her heart race and her breath catch in her throat. In a low baritone rumble, he simply asked, "Care to dance?" Astonished partly by the fact that he was so stunning, and partly by the fact that she was so flustered by him, Raquel could only nod and take the hand that he preferred as he led her to the centre of the room. The band fell silent and the crowd parted for the couple, clearing a large space for them to perform what would invariably be a dance to remember for years to come. The mysterious gentleman bowed deeply and Raquel curtsied. in turn as the band began to play a lively up-tempo tune, and then they began to dance. They stepped simply at first, each becoming familiar with the other one's movement. As some onlookers later claimed, the two moved as though halves of a whole, each fluid step moving seamlessly into the other, both dancers flowing in perfect unison and perfect time with the music. Quickly the two began to perform more and more complex moves, gracefully twirling across the floor as though on a cushion of air. What happened next is a point of some contention. Some say that the band began to pick up the tempo to test the limits of the dancers, it was supposed. Others argue that the couple simply began to move faster and the music changed to keep pace with them. However, all agree that the duo began to step faster with the whirling dance becoming a blur of dips, spins and leaps. As the band reached a climactic crescendo in the music, the gentleman took Raquel in his arms and they began to spin. Slowly at first, then faster and faster and faster. Their feet flew across the floorboards as the music rose to a near hysterical pace, and as they rotated, Raquel began to realise this was no ordinary dance, and no ordinary stranger. She locked eyes with her partner and noticed for the first time their unusual hue, a deep, unsettling crimson. He began to laugh, a low bellowing rumble that sent chills down her spine. Their whirling dance began to make her feel faint, but she found that she couldn't let go of the enigmatic stranger. Her hands clasped his in a white-knuckled death grip as they circled around each other. Soon, all that astonished onlookers could see was a black and red blur, and most agree that the pair was no longer dancing on the floor. They had risen several inches into the air, circling around faster than the eye could see. The band members frantically beat out the tempo, terrified and exhausted, but unable to cease their rhythmic tune. Sweat beaded on their foreheads as muscles strained to their breaking point to keep pace with their otherworldly beat. Suddenly, Raquel let out an ear-piercing shriek and fell to the ground. As suddenly as he had appeared, the gentleman in the black suit was gone. In his wake, he left only a faint scent of sulphur and Raquel. Concerned, the other dancers crowded around to see what had become of their most beautiful flower, and were shocked and dismayed by the sight that confronted them. Raquel lay, limbs contorted at grotesque angles, her face frozen in a mask of fear. All colour had been leached from them. Her once supple brown skin and the voluptuous body had become a shriveled husk of papery skin and bone. The only indication that this lifeless corpse was, in fact, her was the bright red skirt she had been wearing, now hanging limply at her withered waist. To this day, women in bars and at clubs quietly gossip with each other about dancing with a mysterious red-eyed young man who dances as though possessed. And that's it for tonight, my little hellhounds. Thanks for listening. If you have any scary stories you want narrated on the channel, then send them to Reddit r/homeofscares and follow me on Twitter @homeofscares. And don't forget to subscribe and click the like button, as this really does help the channel to grow. Now, good night, my little hellhounds.